Galvanic Shards Mercenary is insane in PoE 2 the third edict. He is shocked, and with full power you will just melt enemies like this. Yes! Goodbye. Yes, I did it with level 10 crossbow without implicits. Mercenary is pretty tanky, as you can see. We can evade loads of attack, and we basically don't care about even these slams right now for some reason. I finished the campaign, and here's my leveling guide. I will explain everything from gear you will need, what skills and support gems to use, and where to go on your passive skill tree, especially when you're going through campaign, since if you go into the wrong path, at certain act you will be damned. Now, while this guide is for Galvanic Shards mercenaries that I used to destroy whole campaign pretty easily and it was fun, if you're interested you can see it will be in the description, but we can start with Galvanic Shards. Our first skill actually will be Permafrost Bolts. It converts physical damage to cold damage, and it may freeze target. I use the skill basically by running around and shooting targets, that's it, nothing fancy. Most enemies will be destroyed by this skill in 1 or 2 shots and you're fine. But if you're fighting elite enemies, that's where comes our second skill into play. It will be Fragmentation Rounds. Fragmentation rounds will consume freeze on hit. This means they will basically unfreeze target, but they will deal a lot of extra attack damage on top and will convert all physical damage to cold damage. That's insanely important to understand when you're playing your mercenary. So our basic combination is to freeze target first, and when target is frozen, we switch to another rounds and destroy this freeze with our shotgun. Another important part is to actually understand that you're firing basically shotgun. You see, you're firing in a cone in front of you, and the skills firing fragments. Each fragment not dealing loads of damage. So if you want to be constant with your freezes, you want to come close and shoot close. It will fire all 10 targets at one target, that's it. There's one more problem. Basically, when you freeze your target, when target is unfrozen, it's hard to freeze a target once again. Basically, they got protection from being stunned and being frozen and being electrocuted, from immobilization basically. That's where comes our next skills, and these skills will help you destroy loads of bosses when you're advancing through campaign. It will be gas grenade and explosive grenade, and you want to use them in that order. First of all, gas grenade, and then explosive grenade. They will blow up gas grenade for extra damage and everyone will be deleted from the screen. So basically you just shoot 2 grenades and wait a little bit, you can roll inside, they will blow up and enemies will be destroyed. To make the skills really efficient, of course, we need correct support gems. And that's the support gems I used before I switched completely into Galvanic Shards. For grenades is multi-shot. You want to hit multiple grenades at the same time, so 3 grenades at the same time is what we're looking for. Therefore multi-shot is the first support gem for boost grenades. Then we're using corrosion, and then we're using fire attunement. Corrosion to destroy armor a little bit from target. We're still dealing a little bit of physical damage, so it makes sense. And fire attunement because it just increases damage of our explosive grenade. For permafrost bolts we're using double barrel to load additional bolt, and we will use it as our basic skill, so we're just running around and shooting 2 bullets instead of 1 from 1 clip. And cold attunement to have more extra cold damage and freeze targets more often. More cold damage we inflict, faster we will destroy them. For fragmentation rounds we also will use cold attunement, because it will convert different damage types into cold damage. It just gives extra damage on top, so that's okay. You can have more physical damage since again you're converting physical damage to cold anyway, but it doesn't matter. For leveling it's more than you need. Last gem I used is rapid attacks. It's not super important, but technically we're using fragmentation rounds only for few seconds after we freeze target, so we want to do it fast and then continue attacking boss with permafrost bolts and grenades. Your first spirit gem you will unlock can be Herald of Ice. If you wish, it will help you clear first areas faster, but if you don't care, I didn't care it, I just crafted Herald of Thunder, we will need it later. So this will go in my inventory, we don't need it. Since now let's talk about real build. Galvanic Shard. Galvanic Shards follows the same formula as previous projectiles, so it fires different fragments per shot. And it looks like this. Everyone was pretty upset and everyone is crying that Galvanic Shards nerfed, but that's because most people just decided not to actually read patch notes probably and stopped exactly there. I made mass analysis and this crossbow is actually insane. You see, I just shooted 7 bolts in a row, even though I got only 1 bolt in my clip. You just don't need anything else, it's pretty broken, and with high reload speed this bolt is insanely OP. So again, it follows same formula. We're shooting sitting in a cone in front of us. And main damage comes not from these bolts, because this bolt's dealing 23 damage of your weapon basically. Main damage comes from beam. So when these little fragments hit a target, there's a beam that attacks for almost 2 times of your damage, and it's chains between enemies, so that's just complete screen melter. You just press a button and you melt screen. You think I'm powerful right now because maybe I got good gear? Well, I'm clearing Act 3 with level 10 crossbow. Yeah, okay. Of course I got upgraded level of skills, but with good crossbow you will see exactly the same stuff on the screen. One of the problems you may encounter when you're playing this style is how to shock your target. You will need it later. Basically, again, if you can't shock your targets, let me remind you how shock works. Basically, you will shock target more often if you deal more damage. That's it. To deal more damage, you need to stay close. So if I stay away from him, there's a chance that he won't be shocked. And yeah, as you can see, he's not shocked. But if I stand close and I shoot from the close range, all bolts hit him and he is instantly shocked. That's basically how you shock targets more often. Correct passive skill tree is also important, but more on that later. Technically, if you want to shock targets constantly, stay close and hit them from a close distance, they will be shocked in a few hits. For Galvanic Shards, we're using everything that will give us more damage, initially especially. So initially you can use Lightning Attunement with extra lightning damage. You can use Elemental Ornament with more elemental damage with attacks. Dealing more elemental damage gives you ability to shock targets more often. I guess it's pretty much self-explanatory. However, when you get really powerful crossbows, you don't care about this damage already. You care about clearing screens. Galvanic Shards is extremely overpowered. You just clear screens with one button, but to make it even more enjoyable when you don't care about damage when you got OK-ish crossbow, you want to have Nimble Reload. It will increase reload speed by 60%. That's just completely insane. You will reload so fast that you won't even notice. And another really big upgrade for you will be Fork. Ability to Fork gives basically ability for these little projectiles to start jumping between enemies and chain between them for even more damage. That's just insane DPS multiplier, and you won't even see it in DPS, but it almost doubles overall DPS. So that's crazy. Now, you kinda know what the skill is doing. Okay, how we will use it in our build. The second skill you will find is Load Shockburst Rounds. You will unlock it later, after Galvanic Shards. And that's the skill, when you unlock it, you actually can forget about everything else. Before you unlock Shockburst Rounds, you still want to use Permafrost Bolts and Fragmentation Rounds, combination against bosses, and then use gas grenades and explosive grenades. So that's what you use against bosses. But you clearing everything with Galvanic Shards, it's extremely fast attack speed, extremely nice screen clear, and you don't need to switch your ammunition ever. After unlocking Shockburst Rounds, you may actually start using only these 2 skills. They will look like this, you will deal almost no damage, and that's like pretty awful of course. But if target is shocked, then you will see something like this. He will blow up basically and be melted in a matter of seconds. That's because Shockburst Rounds also having most damage not from projectile but from pulse. And pulse only occur on enemy who is shocked. It converts all damage to lightning damage. It got insane attack speed, and it's a payoff skill, don't forget. So you can't inflict shock, you can't inflict any other condition with this skill. Any other lightning condition, of course. For this skill also we're using Elemental Focus to deal more elemental damage, pretty much self-explanatory. But to increase damage even more, we want to use Rapid Attacks, which will increase our attack speed, so we will deal more shocks, more pulses in lowest amount of time. Another big damage boost is Fresh Clip. Fresh Clip will deal 1% more damage for each bolt reloaded by this skill, and you reload loads of bolts in this skill, therefore it's really useful damage multiplier. With help of Herald of Thunder you will clear screens. Again, for Herald of Thunder, Elemental Focus for more elemental damage, Lightning Attunement for more lightning damage, and Deadly Herald for more herald damage. That's it. And you may play pretty nicely. But you will find out yourself in a bunch of troubles, especially when you're trying to shock bosses. You won't actually find yourself in troubles if you're carefully avoiding attacks, playing the game, but if you want to turn your brain off completely, almost completely of course, sometimes it's really hard to shock bosses with Galvanic Shards. So there's 2 options that you may take. One of the options is to actually use bow instead of crossbow in your weapon set too, with Stormcaller arrow skill. This arrow skill is insanely good, and it will inflict shocks while you're staying safely from the distance, but there's another way to inflict shock. It's called Load Plasma Blast. I like it because it's crossbow skill, I like to use one weapon, and it's fun to me, and this is fun to use skill. Fun to use because it's a little bit difficult to use, but when it lands, it just lands. This skill got probably one of the best attack damage scaling, 2210 right now at pretty low skill level, but it got a really big wind up time, basically plus 2 seconds to total attack time. The coolest part about the skill, when you improve quality on it, you will have more shock duration, and basically we will use the skill to inflict shock to bosses most of the time. Again, secret is you will have more chances to shock if you deal more damage, and this skill just deals most lightning damage possible. For this skill we will use Overcharge to increase magnitude of shock, but also lightning exposure, but also shock to increase chance to shock, but I don't have the super gem right now. Basically we're using this skill to inflict shock. And it's not a really big problem for Mercenary, because Mercenary is pretty tanky, as you can see. We can evade loads of attack, we can deflect loads of attack and take almost no damage, and we basically don't care about even these slams right now for some reason. That's why I recommend Mercenary for beginners. Loads amount of health, loads amount of protection. But let's talk about this Plasma Blast. Basically you switch to this ammo and then you start loading it, and when you load, you shoot. Bam! He is shocked, and now you switch to Stormburst rounds and you delete him in a matter of few seconds. Yes, I did it with level 10 crossbow without implicits and affixes. That's how powerful our damage output is. There's actually a secret how you can multiply damage of the skill even more, and it's emergency reload. It's buff that reloads all bolts in your crossbow, and it empowers them with 25% more damage. So that's great empowerment. Right now I'm using only cooldown recovery on this skill to lower cooldown recovery, and that's it. Now, how to increase our damage even more? And yes, there's loads of ways, especially with our extra skills and stuff. I will tell about skills later, because most importantly is to pick correct passive skill tree. While I'm playing this build on Tactician right now, I like these nodes to have better protection. It gives me deflectoration based on my armor, it gives me less spirit reservation, so I can use a bunch of spirit buffs. I really like this. But again, you can play it not only on Tactician, you can play it on Witch Hunter, you can play it on Gemling, but you will have less buffs. That's why I'm talking about passive skill tree right now, because second part with extra buffs will be applicable only to Tactician. Now, projectile damage everywhere while you're playing campaign, so you're taking this route only, and then in Act 1 you want to have this two-handed weapons part. So this gives you loads of extra damage with crossbow, and crossbow is two-handed weapon. That's it. That's basically Act 1. When you're going into Act 2, you want to go into the right side and get all projectile damage over here, as well as stun build up. That's actually a big stuff, because it will give you ability even to stun bosses from time to time if you not one-shot them. That's very big, and also nice damage multiplier. Then you're basically going outside. You're going on the outer ring. While you're going into outer ring, you may have this quality of life node. It will increase your movement and attack speed. If you killed recently, it just helps us clear out enemies a little bit faster, but it's fairly optional. Actually, you want to go down into this crossbow tree, and we're taking exactly notes you're seeing on the screen right now. We're taking damage with crossbows, followed by this reusable ammunition. 30% chance to not consume a bolt if you reload recently. So with just 30% chance, you saw that it's possible to actually hit 6 bolts at 1 by 1. It's really possible. But there's also passive skill gem, Armor Conservation. I will use it later. And it gives us a 25% more chance to not consume bolts. It's more late gameish stuff, but it's very useful. And then we get in this crossbow reload speed with increased damage for each type of ammunition fired in the past 10 seconds. Technically we're shooting Galvanic Shards. That's just nice little damage buff. We won't need it later, but for now we take it. And then we're getting this critical hit chance with crossbow. We don't need critical hit chance actually when we're leveling. We will need it later in the end game. But we're taking this to get 30% chance when you reload a crossbow to be immediate. Again, that's another way how you can basically use only one bolt in one clip and almost never reload. After taking these nodes over here, you're free to go where you like. You can go into attack speed nodes. It will also increase your DPS basically. You will have chance to blind enemies on hit, so it will give you more protection. Or you can go to the right side and get lightning damage over here. Lightning damage is lucky. It will increase our damage significantly, by the way. And then we can go over here to increase our chance to shock. Again, that's one of the ways how you can increase your chances to shock. And if you're not having this node over here, that's why you're not shocking enemies, especially in Act 4 and so on. Then penetrating elemental resistance and more elemental damage, more chance to shock over here. That's basically how you play. Then, what to do next? Next, you probably will find yourself in a situation where you want a little bit more defenses. So whenever you find yourself in a situation when you need a little bit more defenses, you got two options. One of them over here. Basically go left and take these nodes. You will have more evasion rating if you have been hit recently. So someone hit you, you will have more evasion. Or if no one hits you recently, you will have more armor. So first hit you will take will be less powerful because you will have more armor. And these nodes over here, that gives again more evasion rating, protection from critical hits, more armor. That's the only protective nodes you need. Also I took a little bit of attack speed over here, and also I took a little bit of movement speed over here because I want to run in maps faster. That's it. That's basically my leveling setup. It's really powerful, but how to increase our damage and quality of life even more? Herald of Ash helps really nicely because it will blow up enemies around. And I found out that you can use basically stuff like cannibalism, for example, to recover life on kill. It's really useful again when you're clearing basic monsters. One more way how you can increase your overall damage output is using War Banner. I'm still experimenting with it, but basically you place it and you will deal more damage. Overwhelming Presence is nice spirit buff to increase chances to inflict shock, very important. And with full power you will just melt enemies like this. Yes! Goodbye. If you want to just copy this build, there is a snapshot of exactly this character right now in my Discord, and I update it when I am updating the build. But if you're having any troubles and think you're dealing not enough damage, that's the reason for you to watch video on the screen right now. You need to learn how to get best equipment for cheapest prices in Path of Exile 2. This trading guide is really important, especially for new players, so watch it now and see you in the next videos.